All right, NBA fans, you know that feeling, right? After an amazing night of hoops where you're just like, whoa, what a game.
Absolutely. Yeah, the kind of night where your mind is just replaying all those incredible shots and you're trying to figure out how it all went down.
Exactly. And that's exactly the energy we're tapping into today. We're going to do a deep dive, not just looking at the scores, but really breaking down some of those recent thrillers.
Yeah, forget the box score. We're going beyond the numbers to uncover the strategy, those key decisions, the big moments that paint the full picture of what really happened.
And we've got a lineup of 5 games that are just begging to be dissected.
We're talking Celtics, Kings, Suns, Bucks, Bulls, Nuggets, Pelicans, Sixers, and to round it out, the Mavericks taking on the Nets.
So our mission is to understand not just who won, but how they pulled it off.
Exactly, and what those victories or even those losses tell us about where these teams are at right now.
So let's hip off of that Celtics-Kings game. Boston took it pretty handily, 113-95. What jumped out at you in terms of how they controlled that matchup?
Honestly, the Celtics defense was just suffocating. I mean, you look at the Kings, they just couldn't get anything going. And it wasn't just about the points, it was how Boston shut down their strengths.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It felt like they were always a step ahead, like they knew exactly what Sacramento wanted to do.
Right, they took away those easy entry passes to Sabonis in the post, really disrupted their flow and forced them into tougher shots from the perimeter.
And Fox, too, they really made him work for every basket.
Absolutely. Their pick and roll coverage was so aggressive, they didn't give him any space to breathe. They didn't let him turn that corner and attack the basket.
So it wasn't just a good defensive performance. It was a strategic dismantling of the Kings' offense.
Precisely. They had a game plan and they executed it flawlessly.
And then on the other side, you have Tatum having a monster game.
Yeah.
But it felt like it was more than just him going off, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Tatum was incredible, no doubt. But the real key was the Celtics' overall offensive execution.
He felt very fluid,
Yeah.
very unselfish.
Exactly. They were moving the ball beautifully, finding the open man and taking high percentage shots, and that wears down a defense over time.
And it makes those contested shots even tougher to hit when you're already gassed.
Right. So while Fox had some nice moments for the Kings, like the source mentions, the Celtics just had that overall cohesion on both ends of the floor.
They were the better team that night, plain and simple.
And that's what makes this a good example for our listeners. It shows you how a team with a clear plan and multiple players executing it can really neutralize even a star like Fox.
So it's not always about stopping one guy. It's about disrupting the entire system.
You got it.
Now let's move on to a game that went down to the wire. The Suns squeaking past the Bucks 108-106. This one had me on the edge of my seat. What were your biggest takeaways?
I think the word that comes to mind is resilience. Facing a team like the Bucks with Giannis playing at an MVP level, you gotta have some serious mental toughness to pull out a win like that.
Especially when it's so close. Every possession feels like life or death.
And the Suns just stayed composed. They weathered the storm. They traded blows with the Bucks and never let the pressure get to them.
And, of course, you can't talk about this game without mentioning Devin Booker. Those clutch shots in the final minutes were just ice cold.
Yeah, he's got that killer instinct in those big moments, you know? He wants the ball in his hands, and he's not afraid to take the big shot.
But it's not just about confidence. It's about skill, too. He seems to have a knack for creating space, even when he's tightly guarded.
Absolutely. His footwork, his handles, his ability to read the defense, it all comes together in those crucial possessions, and he makes it look effortless.
And it's not like he was playing against scrubs. The Bucks have a great defense, but they just couldn't stop him when it mattered most.
Right, and then on the other end, the Suns did a solid job on Giannis. They didn't shut him down completely, which is almost impossible, but they made him work for everything.
So they were smart about how they defended him, sometimes doubling, sometimes using single coverage with a physical defender.
And that's the key. You don't always have to stop a superstar. You just have to make him take tough shots and limit his easy looks.
This game is a great example of how composure and execution in those final moments can make all the difference.
And it shows that even the best individual efforts can be overcome by a team that's playing smart and staying focused under pressure.
All right, let's switch gears to a game that was a little more high scoring. The Bulls taking down the Nuggets 129-119. What was the fuel behind that offensive explosion from Chicago?
They were just firing on all cylinders that night. Both Levine and DeRozan were in a zone, and they just kept finding ways to score.
It felt like every time down the court, they were getting a good look either at the rim or from beyond the arc.
And they were sharing the ball, too. It wasn't just one guy taking over. It was a collective effort.
So even though Jokic had a solid game for Denver, like the sources point out, he just couldn't carry them against that kind of offensive firepower.
It's hard to win when the other team is hitting shots from everywhere, and the Bulls were just in rhythm that night.
And their ability to capitalize on fast breaks really put the pressure on Denver's defense.
Absolutely. They pushed the pace, they made the Nuggets run, and that really opened things up for them offensively.
This is a great example of offensive momentum. Once the Bulls got going, it was hard for the Nuggets to slow them down.
And that's the beauty of basketball. When you're hitting shots and playing with confidence, it just feeds itself.
All right, moving on to the Pelicans' victory over the Sixers, 112-99. What stood out to you in this one?
The Pelicans just came out with so much aggression. They attacked the basket relentlessly, and they shot the ball incredibly well.
And Brandon Ingram really set the tone with his performance. He was leading the charge both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, he was a force to be reckoned with in this game. He was making plays all over the court.
And while Embiid put up some numbers for Philly, the Pelicans just seemed to be in control of most other aspects of the game.
They dominated the boards, they got second chance opportunities, and they limited the Sixers' possessions.
And their pick-and-roll game was very effective.
Yeah, they kept the Sixers' defense guessing they were finding open shooters and creating opportunities to attack the basket.
So this game shows how those fundamental elements of basketball, like rebounding and executing set plays, can be just as important as individual brilliance.
Absolutely. You need both to win consistently in the NBA.
And the Pelicans really showed that off in this game.
No doubt they were the better team that night.
All right, let's wrap things up with the Mavericks' victory over the Nets, 120-101. What was the key to Dallas controlling this game?
We have to start with Luka. He was just phenomenal. He was orchestrating the offense, making the right reads, finding his teammates, and hitting his shots.
It's amazing to watch how effortlessly he seems to control the game.
He's a special talent for sure, but it wasn't just Luka. The Mavericks' defense was also a big factor.
Yeah, the source mentions that the Nets started strong, but then Dallas really clamped down.
Right. Once their defensive intensity picked up, the Nets just couldn't get anything going. They forced turnovers, they contested shots, and they really disrupted their rhythm.
And that defensive energy translated into offense for Dallas. It fueled their fast break and created easy scoring opportunities.
Exactly. So it wasn't just about Luka, it was a complete team effort.
So this game highlights the importance of playing with both offensive and defensive intensity.
Right. You need to be able to score and get stops to be a championship contender, and the Mavericks showed that they can do both.
So as we look back on these 5 games, what are the big picture takeaways for our listeners?
Well, we saw the Celtics demonstrate the power of a suffocating team defense that can shut down even the most potent offenses.
And then you have the Suns, who showed us how composure and clutch shot making can win tight games against tough opponents.
The Bulls gave us a masterclass in offensive execution. They were firing on all cylinders and couldn't be stopped.
And then you have the Pelicans, who reminded us that aggression and controlling the fundamentals like rebounding and set plays can lead to victory.
And finally, the Mavericks showed us how a balanced attack with both offensive and defensive intensity can dominate a game.
So as we continue to follow these teams throughout the season, the question is, can they maintain this level of play?
Will the Celtics keep up that defensive dominance? Will Booker keep hitting those clutch shots? Will the Bulls' offense stay this hot?
Can the Pelicans keep playing with that same level of aggression? And will the Mavericks continue to showcase that balance on both ends of the floor?
These are the questions that make the NBA so exciting.
And as you watch these teams and others throughout the rest of the season, remember to look beyond the final score.
Pay attention to the details, the defensive schemes, the offensive sets, the individual matchups.
Because that's where you'll find the real insights into the game of basketball.
The how and the why behind the wins and the losses.
That's what makes this sport so fascinating and so unpredictable.
And that's what we're here to break down for you every week. So keep listening and we'll keep diving deep into the world of the NBA.